Hi, welcome to Chad Silversmithing. First, thanks for coming to my channel. I really appreciate you taking the time to visit. Before you leave here, if you wouldn't mind, hit the like button. That helps out my channel a whole lot, so I appreciate it. Here to leave some suggestions, constructive criticism, ideas for videos, whatever. It's nice to get to know you through the comments. About 6 months ago, I did a video about making 5 or 6 different kinds of bales, and it was pretty popular. So I thought, there's tons of different kinds of bales. Let's revisit this topic and make some different kinds of bales today. So I'm going to do 5 different kinds of bales. Over the past couple of years, I've gotten numerous requests for a bale that you can attach after the fact, so you can put it over a beaded necklace, for instance. So one of the bales is going to have that feature. Before we get started, I wanted to thank all my YouTube subscribers. You all are very awesome, and I appreciate your support, both financially as well as the kind words and good suggestions. The other group I wanted to thank is a pretty good sized group over there now. Lots of knowledge, great people, and I really wanted to thank them for their support, both financial and knowledge-wise. Okay, so let's make some bales. Alright, let's see what I drew up here. This is my design idea book. I have 3 different versions of these in the merch store. It's a good way for me to keep track of what I'm going to make or what I'm trying out. There we go. Okay, so I was sketching up some ideas. First one I'm going to do is going to be relatively simple, and it's going to involve a little bit of sawing. I made some earrings a while back that had kind of this stylized sort of leaf look to them, and I was just going to make one of those and turn it into a bale. I thought that might make kind of a nice looking bale, so we'll see how that comes out. The next one, I do a lot of geometric kind of things, and so I am going to make a rectangular one that's sort of a box where the chain will go through there, and it'll have a loop on the bottom, and I'm going to put a piece of textured silver on the front, just for giggles. And third, I'm going to do a little filigree one. I used a filigree one on one of my pendants a while back, but I don't know that I did a detailed, description of how I put it together. So I thought I'd add that to this one. Fourth, this is going to be the bales around a pre-existing pendant that you have a jump ring on, so you can put it over a beaded chain or something like that. And it's going to involve a piece of 18 gauge. I think I'm going to hammer it, and then we'll cut it into kind of a triangular, or actually a diamond on the inside here, and some tube that a piece of 14 gauge round wire would fit into. So we can just kind of squeeze them together, and that should prevent it from falling off of the pendant. Okay, this last one is going to be kind of where you could run a narrow cord through it that you might use for beading, or I don't do a lot of beading, so I don't know all the different kinds, but I know there's different kinds, both metal and synthetic and natural, since it has a pretty small hole. But what we'll do is we'll make a box with the miter vise jig with a nice 45 degrees out of 18 gauge sheet, and then I'll drill a hole on either side of it, and then we can just mount a little loop on the bottom, and it'll be ready for a pendant to be attached to it. And then when you string it on your string, just run this through the bead, or through the stone bead as well, and that'll be kind of a frame for it. I think that'll be cool. So we'll see how that goes. First off, we're going to do the 22 gauge sheet that I cut a little rectangle here, and I went ahead and I sketched out the design or something similar to it on there. And so I'm going to take us over to the sawing area that I have, and we're going to saw at these little holes and see. Apologize for my messy sawing area here, but I think I have about one out. So I fed it through one of the holes here, put a little wax on, and let's get sawing. I was not a sawing enthusiast until recently. Never really took the time to practice much, so I'm gradually getting better at it, so it's not as frustrating as it was at first. It's funny, it took me almost 30 years to start really sawing stuff. I had a little bit of a goof here, sort of. In the first one, like I said, I was getting a little aggressive, so my saw blade was steering the wrong way. So I'll have to do a little bit of corrective filing on this one and cutting. I peeled the tape off and cut these and started to file them a little bit. You can see I'm going to have to do a little corrective filing here with my needle file. I think that might be cool. I'm not sure which side should go to the front. I think probably this side looks a little better, considering my exist, so I can fix my mistakes. This might have leaves on it itself, you know. Since we're making a bail, it seems appropriate to use some bail making pliers. So let's do this. I'm just going to put it around. And you would just mount this over a jump ring or some other kind of projecting shape that contains the end of this, and just solder it together. And I suppose you could put whichever side forward you want. You could also sheet that looks really nice as a bail. I have a general bail video up there. And incidentally, while we're at it, I might as well say there's a link to my part 1 of this one, which was about 6 months ago, which has I don't know, 6 or 7 different kinds of bails on it as well. So make sure to hit that. All right, well, that's number 1. So put him to the side. Number 2, I'm going to make a rectangular box here. For time's sake, I found some scrap 18 gauge, and I rolled it through the rolling mill with a little bit of pattern, a texture sheet, and I got kind of an angular pattern. So I'm going to one of those big, wide Omega kind of chains. I remember those being in style quite a while ago. I'm not sure if they are anymore, but or if you wanted to do like a choker with this as kind of the focal point of it to hold your whatever pendant is coming off of your neck there. That might be a good idea. So I think what I'm going to do for the back part that is going to be where the chain goes through is I think I'm just going to take some 22 gauge sheet, a strip of it, and make it into kind of a staple shape, and then we'll just flip this up, and then I think it'll be ready to go. So okay, so it's going to be a little bit longer on either side to this, and I want it to be able to contain a pretty good sized chain, so I'm just going to eyeball it. I always trim it shorter if we need to, but I guess we need to kind of get an idea how wide this is too. One of the good things about doing this YouTube channel has been it's helped me to push things that I was doing metalsmithing wise. When you force yourself to come up with some different videos every week, it makes you think outside of your box a little bit. I think that's a good thing. It makes you push your boundaries a little bit and come up with some really cool stuff sometimes. Everybody asks me about these cutters. They're just Fiskars craft shears. So they can be found, similar ones, or they change the color of the handle sometimes, but they're basically the same cutters, I believe. The old ones had the last set of that I did. These are basically the same model, just this is updated, I think. Actually, this one's pretty good. Somewhere in that area. I'm going to use my flat nose pliers because they have a nice straight edge on them here. I want this to be relatively a nice steep bend like that. Bend needs to go a little bit further down. So if you ever need to move a bend, I had it bent right there, but I want the bend to be a little bit further along. If I grab it a little bit offset like that, I hope you can see that. Oftentimes you can pinch it. I think that's a little better. So let's, by changing the place where I bent this, I made it significantly longer on that side. So I'm going to try and cut it down to be about the same height. That's good. It's just a little bit shorter, so I can solder it on there and then just file off the excess. And we should have a nice little kind of rectangular box. If you haven't seen any of my videos before, I use hard silver sheet solder generally. And I use a spray-on flux called Mighty Flux. What I'm going to do on this one is I'm going to do what's called sweating solder, where I'm going to pre-attach some solder to this base piece, which is going to be the front, and then I'll just place this on top of it and reflow the solder so it sticks to both. So if I put a little piece over on this side here, a piece on this side over here, get those guys hot enough, get the metal hot enough to melt those. We'll get a little puddle on each of them. Need to flux the ends of these. So the top piece being exposed to the flame up here is going to be a little bit easier to get the temperature. But I want both of them to reach that temperature, so I'm kind of focusing mostly on the bottom piece there. The top piece will achieve that temperature just by kind of being there. A couple of things I need to do. I wanted to put a little loop at the bottom of this, a place for the chain, and you could put a pretty big, like Omega chain, or like I said, a kind of a choker sort of thing through that maybe, in order to suspend whatever your primary decoration is on that. Let's see, so I need a loop. Make it with these. I don't want too huge of a loop, but big enough to give us some leeway with how we use it. I'm just going to cut a piece off from there. Go ahead and open this up a little bit. Okay, so if I want to leave this open so that you'll be able to open it up and attach another loop through it that's attached to your pendant, whatever it is, I'm going to put the split down here off to the side somewhere and solder it to that, I think. So let's just solder it. You could solder it in the middle of this if you wanted to. I think I'm just going to solder it on the base. This you don't want it hanging out from your sternum anyway. I don't think so. So. Hopefully I got that centered. I guess we'll find out later. I always get things soldered on and then I realize it's not centered. So let's let that guy pickle. And let's move on to the next one. Alright, so let's do a little filigree one. And I think to start with, I'm going to start with some like 14 gauge maybe round wire for the outside edge. I was thinking it might be nice to use square the other day, so I'm going to improvise and use this for the outside edge. I was thinking it might be nice to be a little bit more delicate than 14, so this is slightly smaller. I'm going to file those ends flat, see if we can't get them exactly the same length. So we don't have one side longer than the other, which makes it look wonky, I would imagine. Don't want to change my channel's name to Chad's Wonky Jewelry. Who would subscribe to that? Or maybe they would. Certainly more creative than Chad Silversmith. Alright, so what I'm going to do now is find the center of these. Okay, so now I need to make these bent outwards like that. So it doesn't need to be very steep, so I'm going to just line that up with this edge of my big flat nose pliers here. Make it a little bit more maybe. Square wire has a tendency to twist on you when you bend it like this, so be aware of that and correct for it while you're doing this. Okay. So pretty close to the same angle, I think. That's pretty good. So I think I'm going to file these along this plane so that on both of them, so that when I lay them next to each other they come to a point. That's probably good enough. So I think I'm going to solder those two together next, and then we'll start making some little tiny swirls to throw in there. I probably won't have that many because I don't know if I can get them that small with my big fingers here. Maybe one of you who has delicate hands of a surgeon can do it. You may notice I do a lot of pick soldering. Picks do that effectively. I'll put another link up there. I'm not pointing at this thing. You could use little twisted filigree wire like I did in some earrings for my patrons a couple of weeks ago. I took some twisted wire like that. This is going to be sort of fake filigree, because I'm just going to use some 20 gauge wire. So I need to mix, this is some 20 gauge wire here. So let's cut a couple of pieces and see if I can't get some good shapes here. So I think I'm going to make a whole series of these and taper them down here to the middle. We'll see how that works out. I don't know if it's going to work or not, but we'll try it. So I'm not going to make you watch me make all those things over and over again. So be right back. Okay, so I rearranged the pattern a little bit so it fit in there nicely. And I think it'll be pretty. We'll see. For doing something like this, I'm going to use really small pieces of solder. So I'm going to cut some pretty tiny ones here. Just kind of sprinkle over there. This is where PIC soldering comes in really handy, is situations like this. I'm going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, you know, like 25 different solder joints in there that are very small, and I don't want them to clump up. So I want to be able to pretty precisely place little tiny bits of solder there. And that's pick up a little piece. I think we got them all. Okay. This is going to be kind of like that other one as far as being a teardrop shape when you look at it from the side. So I'm going to bend it around one of these guys again. So I'll get these shaped. I'm going to be able to be soldered over a jump ring on top of your pendant as well. So I think that makes for an attractive one. So I'll do that, and then we'll get to work on the next one, which is going to be the one you can snap over a pre-existing necklace. So, all right, for the next one, we're going to do this one where we're going to put the little part that fits together like that to make it into a kind of a clip-on veil for something. But I was going to hammer this one to give it some nice texture. So let me find my little bench block. I think I'm just going to use my little chasing hammer here. This side looks a little smoother to start with, so I'm going to use the peen on the back of this. I kind of like the way hammered silver looks. So I think I'm just going to file this right into a rounded corner there. This is that tube I have. It's the kind that fits 14 gauge wire right in this size. So I'm going to cut myself a little piece of that. I'm also going to grab some 14 gauge round, which is this right here. So it fits right in there nicely. One of them I can cut this way. The other one not so much. So So I'll use that for one side, and then I'm going to go cut a piece of this tubing. I'll be right back. So basically I'm going to put that there, and then I'm going to mount this right there, and then I'm going to cut them off both pretty short. Okay? Probably the tube shorter than this thing, so that you can push them together to create a close-over bail like that. So. Alright, so I'm going to grab a chunk of solder here. It's kind of melted on this side. It makes a nice little puddle. Just set him on here. Make sure he's where I want him to be. Mostly heat the bail itself here. The tube is pretty small and will get hot just from being in proximity there. So I think that's on there. I'm just going to pick up a little bit of solder that I had from previous stuff just a minute ago. Get that to jump on there. Put that right there. And I believe what I'll do is I'll go ahead and pickle this, and I'll cut those off a little bit shorter before I show them to you at the end. I'm going to use the dimensions that I drew here because it works pretty well for this size of a stone bead, I think. Here's a little bit of 18. I don't think that's probably enough, but I can get started with this. Yeah, let's start with this piece here. That's about the right width, I think, for it anyway. So, good planning, Chad. We're just going to grab a piece of scrap off the table and use it. So, if you haven't seen these before, these are pretty slick for making nice 45-degree angles. It's called a miter vise jig. Nobody bothered to tell me about these for 30 years or so, unfortunately. Thankfully, somebody did recently, so if you line them up in here, you can get a pretty good 45-degree angle filed on there. Okay, so now I can probably do the same thing I was doing here, where purple and then make a scratch. Starts maybe. So that'll be the inside edge. That's pretty close. I'm going to try and make 4 just like that. I'm not going to make you watch me do it over and over again, so I'll be right back. That looks pretty square, not too bad at all. So I need to find the center point on 2 of the sides. I'm going to use this side and this side. Make a mark so that I don't forget that. Alright, so I'm just going to drill a hole there and a hole here. Not a huge one, maybe a millimeter, millimeter and a half. Okay, so I got those eye hook, I guess you call it. I don't know what to call these, but a loop on the end of a stem. So, and I'm gonna cut this shorter and solder it on to the bottom like that. Probably not very far down. You might be saying to yourself, but Chad, you're soldering it the wrong direction. And what I'll do is I'll solder it on this way and then I'll twist it. That'll also work harden that a little bit. get an idea what this would look like. This would be a string or a chain normally, but then you can hang whatever kind of cool pendant you made at the bottom of that. It gives it kind of a nice feature. I really like this one. I'll probably do this one again. I'll show you the different polished results here. This is the one that is kind of a stylized leaf. This one has got a box basically with a pattern on the front, a rectangular with a place to hang something off of. This one started out looking like that sort of, but ends up when you bend it around into the shape it's going to be, it's more of a kind of a filigree sort of looking thing. This one I went ahead and squeezed shut, but it's got that tube there and that piece of 14 gauge wire that sticks straight out that just fits right in there, so you just have to open it up, put it around something and squeeze it closed. So, and then of course this one with the holes on the side. This would have to be, like I said, it doesn't have a huge hole. So, but I think that's a really attractive one, and I'll probably do that one again at some point. So I'll take nicer pictures, put them at the end. Again, these are just some ideas. There's lots of variations with bales. You can make all sorts of fun things. So hopefully these will inspire you to experiment a little bit and come up with your own ideas. All right, well, I hope you found that useful and entertaining. I like to change up the bales in my pieces sometimes just to get a different look. And sometimes you want to customize something so it matches a specific style. You know, if you're doing a mid-century modern piece, you want a bale that looks kind of mid-century modern. So learning how to do different ones is always kind of fun for me, and I hope you enjoy it as much as I do. If you enjoyed the content, please make sure to hit the like button before you leave, and leave a comment. I'd love to hear from you. Don't forget to check out the video description down below. There's lots of relevant links, including if you wanted to check out my Patreon, there's a link to that. My merch store, if you want to get yourself one of these nice notebooks to draw up your designs in. My website if you want to see some of my jewelry for sale, and even a buy me a coffee link if you just want to kind of make a contribution to my cause here. So thanks for any of those and all of that, and I hope you had a nice time. Happy silversmithing. Take care.